The eviction notice felt like sandpaper against Tasha Bennett's fingers. She sat on the concrete steps outside her apartment building, 3 identical envelopes spread across her lap. Final notice. Past due. Eviction proceedings. The words blurred together as the afternoon sun beat down on her dark brown skin. Her savings account showed $17. Her mother's medical bills totaled $43,000. And tomorrow she would have nowhere to live. Tasha pressed her palms against her eyes, willing herself not to cry. She had been strong through everything. Strong when her mother got sick. Strong when she lost her job at the bookstore after taking too many days off for hospital visits. Strong when she sold her car, her laptop, her grandmother's jewelry. But sitting here now, with everything crumbling around her, she felt the cracks spreading through her resolve. Her phone buzzed. Another creditor. She let it ring. The street around her moved with typical Tuesday afternoon energy. People walked past with grocery bags, dogs on leashes, coffee cups in hand. They had homes to return to. They had tomorrow figured out. Tasha pulled her green cardigan tighter around her shoulders, even though it was warm. The cardigan had been her mother's. It still smelled faintly of her lavender perfume. "Excuse me, miss?" Tasha looked up. A man stood before her, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a navy suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent used to be. He had light brown skin, close-cropped hair going gray at the temples, and kind eyes that seemed to take in her situation with one glance. A black car idled at the curb behind him. "I'm sorry to bother you," he continued, his voice gentle. "My name is Jonathan Pierce. I know this will sound strange, but I've been looking for someone, and I think you might be able to help me." Tasha gathered her papers quickly, embarrassment flooding through her. "I'm not interested in whatever you're selling. I'm not selling anything. I'm offering help." He pulled a business card from his pocket. "I own Pierce Technologies. Perhaps you've heard of it." She had. Everyone had. Pierce Technologies was one of the largest tech companies in the country. This man standing in front of her, in his expensive suit, with his gentle voice, was a billionaire. And she was homeless. "What do you want?" The words came out sharper than she intended. Jonathan glanced at the papers in her hands. "I have a proposition. It's unusual and I understand if you refuse. But I'm desperate and I think we might be able to help each other." Tasha studied him. There was no mockery in his expression, no pity. Just honest desperation that mirrored her own. "I'm listening. My daughter turns 5 years old in 1 week. She's been asking about her mother, someone she's never met. Her mother left us when Sophie was just 3 months old. For years I've managed to deflect the questions. But this year she's adamant. She wants her mother at her birthday party. I don't understand what this has to do with me." Jonathan took a deep breath. "I need someone to pretend to be my wife for 1 week. To be there for Sophie's birthday. To give her that one perfect memory of having both parents present." Tasha stared at him. "You want me to pretend to be your wife?" "Yes. I will pay you $100,000. $50,000 up front, $50,000 after the week is complete. You'll live in my home. You'll have your own room, your own space. All I ask is that you spend time with Sophie, attend her birthday party, and help me give my daughter one happy memory. $100,000. Tasha's mind reeled. That would pay her mother's medical bills. That would secure an apartment. That would give her breathing room to find a real job, to rebuild her life. She thought about her mother, still recovering, worried sick about Tasha's situation. She thought about the shelter she would have to call tonight if she didn't find a solution. She thought about a 5-year-old girl who just wanted a mother for her birthday. "Why me?" Tasha asked. "Honestly? Because Sophie saw your picture." "What?" Jonathan pulled out his phone, showed her a photo. It was from her social media from 2 years ago before everything fell apart. She was smiling at a park, wearing a bright blue dress, her natural hair in twists. "We were at the coffee shop across the street. Sophie saw you walk by. She said, 'Daddy, that lady has a nice smile. She looks like she gives good hugs.' She's been talking about you ever since. I tracked you down through every possible connection. I know it sounds crazy, but my daughter's happiness means everything to me. And I think you have a kind heart." Tasha looked at the eviction notice. Then at the man offering her salvation. She knew what the smart thing was. She knew she should be suspicious, should ask more questions, should protect herself. But kindness had always been her compass, even when it hurt her. And right now she needed hope. "When would I start?" she asked. Relief washed over Jonathan's face. "Today. Right now. I'll send someone to collect your belongings. You'll never have to see this building again. Your mother's medical bills will be paid by end of business today. The first 50,000 will be in your account within the hour. All you have to do is say yes. Tasha thought about Sophie. About a little girl who wanted a mother. About Jonathan who loved his daughter enough to do something this desperate. About herself and what she had left to lose. Yes, she said. I'll do it. Have you ever been so desperate that a stranger's offer felt like your only hope? What would you do in Tasha's situation? Subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments below. Would you accept this impossible offer? Jonathan smiled, and something in his expression told Tasha that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't imagine. He extended his hand. She took it. And with that simple gesture, she stepped away from the concrete steps and toward a future that scared and excited her in equal measure. The black car door opened. Jonathan gestured for her to enter. Tasha took one last look at the apartment building that had been her home, at the life she was leaving behind. Then she stepped into the car, the leather seats soft beneath her, the air conditioning cool on her skin. Thank you, Jonathan said quietly. You have no idea what this means to me. Tasha looked at him, at the genuine gratitude in his eyes. Thank you, she replied. You have no idea what this means to me either. As the car pulled away from the curb, Tasha felt something shift inside her. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was just relief. But for the first time in months she felt like she could breathe. She had no idea what the next week would bring. She had no idea how she would pretend to be someone's wife, someone's mother. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would do her very best. For Sophie. For Jonathan. And for herself. The city streets passed by outside the window. Tasha watched them blur together, each block taking her further from her old life and closer to something unknown. Jonathan sat across from her, making phone calls, arranging details. She caught fragments of conversation. Have the guest room prepared. Transfer the funds immediately. Clear my schedule for the rest of the day. Within 20 minutes, her phone pinged. She looked at the screen. A deposit notification. $50,000. Tasha had to read it 3 times before it felt real. I've also arranged for your mother's medical bills to be paid, Jonathan said, setting his phone down. They should be cleared within the next 2 hours. Tears stung Tasha's eyes. I don't know how to thank you. Just be kind to Sophie. That's all the thanks I need. The car turned onto a tree-lined street where homes became larger, gates became taller, and Tasha's old life became a distant memory. They pulled up to iron gates that swung open automatically. The driveway curved through manicured gardens. And at the end of it sat a mansion that looked like something from a magazine. Tasha's breath caught. Welcome home, Jonathan said softly. For the next week at least. Oh. The word felt foreign and wonderful at the same time. Tasha stepped out of the car, her worn sneakers touching pristine cobblestones. The front door opened and she saw her future waiting inside. A future with a 5-year-old girl who needed love. A billionaire who needed help. And Tasha herself who needed salvation. Sometimes desperation leads to the most beautiful transformations. Sometimes the most impossible situations create the most perfect solutions. And sometimes when you have nothing left to lose, you find everything you've been searching for. Tasha took a deep breath and walked toward the door. Her new life was about to begin. The inside of the Pierce mansion took Tasha's breath away. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating a grand foyer with marble floors and a sweeping staircase. Everything was bright and clean, decorated in whites, creams, and soft blues. Original artwork hung on the walls. Fresh flowers filled crystal vases on elegant tables. This way, Jonathan said, leading her through a hallway. I want to explain everything properly before Sophie comes home from school. They entered a study with built-in bookshelves and comfortable leather furniture. Jonathan gestured to a green armchair. Please sit. Would you like water? Coffee? Anything? Water would be nice. Tasha's throat felt dry. Jonathan poured water from a glass pitcher, added ice, handed her a glass. He sat across from her, his expression serious. I want to be completely transparent about this arrangement. You deserve to know everything. Tasha sipped the water, grateful for something to do with her hands. Sophie's mother left when our daughter was 3 months old, Jonathan began. Her name was Rebecca. We had what I thought was a good marriage. But after Sophie was born, Rebecca became distant. She said she wasn't ready for motherhood. One morning I woke up and found a note. She was gone. Divorce papers came 2 weeks later. She signed away all parental rights. I haven't heard from her in almost 5 years. Pain flickered across Jonathan's face. Tasha's heart ached for him. Sophie has been asking questions about her mother since she turned 3. Where is she? Why did she leave? Does she love me? I've tried to explain in age-appropriate ways, but the questions keep coming. This year, Sophie became fixated on having her mother at her birthday party. She talks about it constantly. She's drawn pictures. She's told all her friends that her mommy is coming. Jonathan rubbed his temples. I've tried everything. Therapy, conversations, gentle redirections. But Sophie is stubborn like me. She's built this fantasy in her mind. And I'm terrified that disappointing her on her birthday will break something inside her. So you want me to fulfill that fantasy, Tasha said quietly. Yes. Just for 1 week. We'll tell Sophie that you've been away on business, that you travel for work, that you're finally home for her special day. After the birthday party, we'll figure out a gentle way to transition. Maybe you'll have to go back to work. Maybe we'll slowly prepare her for the truth. I don't have all the answers yet. I just know I can't break my daughter's heart on her birthday. Tasha thought about what he was asking. About the lie they would tell. About the little girl who would get her wish, even if only temporarily. What about your family? Your friends? Won't they know I'm not really your wife? My parents passed away years ago. I have a brother in Europe who I barely speak to. Most of my friends are business associates who won't question things. The household staff are loyal and discreet. They'll follow my lead. This is entirely contained within Sophie's world. Her school friends. Her birthday party. Her daily life at home. And after the week? Jonathan met her eyes. You'll receive the second payment. You'll be free to go. I'll help you find an apartment, set you up with job connections if you need them. You'll walk away with enough money to rebuild your life. And Sophie will have one beautiful memory of feeling loved by both parents. It sounded simple. But Tasha knew it wouldn't be. What if Sophie gets attached to me? What if leaving hurts her more? That's a risk I've considered, Jonathan admitted. But right now Sophie is hurting from absence. From questions without answers. From feeling abandoned. 1 week of presence, of love, of attention might be exactly what she needs to start healing. Even if it's not permanent. Tasha understood his reasoning. She also understood that this was a gamble with a child's emotions. But looking at Jonathan's desperate face, remembering her own desperation an hour ago, she realized they were both taking necessary risks. Tell me about Sophie, Tasha said. What is she like? What makes her happy? Jonathan's face softened immediately. She loves art. Drawing, painting, anything creative. She's obsessed with butterflies right now. She wants to be a scientist when she grows up so she can study them. She's incredibly smart, reads above her grade level. But she's also shy. It takes her time to warm up to people. Once she does, she's affectionate and funny and full of questions. What's her favorite color? Purple. Any shade of purple. Her room is decorated in purples and whites. Favorite food? Macaroni and cheese. The kind from the box, not fancy homemade. She also loves strawberries. And chocolate milk. What does she do when she's scared? Jonathan paused. She hides under her bed. She has a special blanket there, soft and blue. She calls it her thinking spot. Tasha nodded, absorbing every detail. What time does she get home from school? 3:30. In about an hour. Then we should prepare. You need to tell me how you want me to act. What story we're telling. How I should respond to her questions. For the next hour, Jonathan briefed her on everything. They would tell Sophie that Tasha's name was Tasha Pierce. That she had been working overseas on important business projects. That she had missed Sophie terribly but had to stay away for work. That she was finally home for an extended visit, starting with Sophie's birthday. They practiced responses to potential questions. They established boundaries. Jonathan showed her photos of Sophie at different ages. He explained Sophie's routines. Bedtime at 8. Bath time with bubbles. Story time with at least 3 books. A nightlight shaped like a moon. I have a request, Tasha said as they finished. Can I meet her as myself first? Just Tasha? Not immediately as her mother? Jonathan considered this. You mean ease into it? Yes. Let her get comfortable with me. Let her ask questions. Let the idea settle naturally instead of forcing it. That's wise. Yes. Let's do that. At 3:25 they heard the front door open. A woman's voice called out. We're home. Jonathan stood. That's Maria, Sophie's nanny. She picks her up from school. Tasha's heart raced. She was about to meet the little girl whose life she was stepping into. The little girl whose birthday wish she was granting. The little girl who had no idea that everything was about to change. Small footsteps echoed in the hallway. Tasha smoothed her green cardigan, suddenly self-conscious of her worn jeans and old sneakers. She stood, wanting to make a good impression. Sophie appeared in the doorway. She was beautiful. Dark curls pulled back in a ponytail. Light brown skin. Big brown eyes. She wore a purple dress with white flowers and carried a backpack covered in butterfly stickers. She stopped when she saw Tasha, suddenly shy. "Sophie, sweetheart," Jonathan said gently. "This is Miss Tasha. She's going to be staying with us for a while." Sophie gripped her backpack straps. "Hi," she whispered. Tasha knelt down to Sophie's level. "Hi, Sophie. Your dad told me it's your birthday next week. That's very exciting." Sophie nodded, still cautious. "He also told me you like butterflies," Tasha continued. "Did you know that butterflies taste with their feet?" Sophie's eyes widened. "Really? Really? They land on flowers and can taste if the nectar is good just by standing on it." A small smile appeared on Sophie's face. "That's silly." "It is kind of silly, but also amazing. Nature is full of silly, amazing things." Sophie stepped closer. "Do you know other butterfly facts?" "I know lots of them. Would you like to hear more?" Sophie nodded eagerly. Tasha spent the next 20 minutes telling Sophie everything she knew about butterflies. She talked about monarch migrations, about chrysalis transformations, about the powder on butterfly wings actually being tiny scales. Sophie listened with rapt attention, asking questions, giggling at the funny parts. Jonathan watched from the doorway, something tender in his expression. When Sophie's nanny called her for a snack, Sophie looked at Tasha hopefully. "Will you still be here after my snack?" "I will," Tasha promised. "I'll be here all week." Sophie smiled, then ran off toward the kitchen. Jonathan approached Tasha. "She already likes you." "She's wonderful," Tasha said honestly. "Absolutely wonderful. Thank you for this. For accepting my offer. For being kind to her." "I'm not doing anything yet. We've barely started." "No. You've already done something important. You made her smile. You gave her your attention. You treated her like she matters." Tasha met his eyes. "She does matter. Every child matters." Something passed between them in that moment. An understanding. A shared purpose. They were strangers brought together by desperate circumstances. But they were united by one goal, making Sophie happy. "Let me show you to your room," Jonathan said. "You'll want to settle in before dinner." He led her upstairs to a beautiful guest room decorated in soft greens and whites. Large windows overlooked the garden. A comfortable bed with fresh linens. An attached bathroom with marble counters. On the dresser sat shopping bags. "I had my assistant pick up some clothes for you," Jonathan explained. "Based on your size from your social media photos. If anything doesn't fit or you need something else, just let me know." Tasha opened one bag. Inside were beautiful casual clothes. Jeans that looked expensive. Soft sweaters. A bright red dress. Everything in her size. "This is too much," she started to say. "It's necessary," Jonathan interrupted gently. "Sophie's friends come from wealthy families. The birthday party will be at our home, but people will notice things. This isn't charity. It's part of the arrangement. You need to look like you belong here." Tasha understood, but it still felt overwhelming. "I'll leave you to get settled," Jonathan said. "Dinner is at 6. Sophie will want you there." After he left, Tasha sat on the bed. She looked around the beautiful room. She thought about the mansion, the clothes, the money in her account. She thought about Sophie's shy smile and Jonathan's desperate hope. She had said yes to this impossible offer. Now she had to follow through. For the next week, she would pretend to be someone's wife. Someone's mother. She would step into a life that wasn't hers. But maybe, just maybe, she would help heal a little girl's heart in the process. Tasha changed into new jeans and a soft blue sweater. She brushed out her hair, letting her natural curls fall around her shoulders. She looked at herself in the mirror. "You can do this," she whispered. "For Sophie. For yourself. You can do this." At 6 o'clock, she went downstairs for dinner. The dining room glowed with afternoon light streaming through tall windows. A long table was set for 3, but they sat close together at one end, making it feel intimate instead of formal. Sophie had changed into purple pajamas already, her curls loose around her face. She kept glancing at Tasha with curious eyes. "Sophie wanted to show you her room after dinner," Jonathan said, serving spaghetti onto plates. "If you're not too tired." "I'd love that," Tasha replied, smiling at Sophie. Sophie beamed. "I have butterfly posters. And books. And I made a painting today at school." "What did you paint?" "A garden. With lots of flowers for butterflies to visit." "That sounds beautiful. I can't wait to see it." They ate dinner together, the conversation flowing naturally. Sophie told stories about school. About her friend Hannah who brought cookies for snack time. About the class hamster named Mr. Whiskers. About how she was learning to write in cursive letters. Tasha listened to every word, asking questions, showing genuine interest. Jonathan watched them interact with visible relief. This was working. Sophie was comfortable. The dynamic felt natural. After dinner, Sophie grabbed Tasha's hand. "Come see my room now." Her small hand was warm in Tasha's. They climbed the stairs together, Sophie chattering excitedly. Jonathan followed behind, giving them space but staying close. Sophie's bedroom was everything Jonathan had described. Purple walls covered with butterfly posters and artwork. White furniture with delicate details. Shelves full of books and toys. A reading corner with beanbags. Everything bright and cheerful and clearly designed with love. "This is your painting," Sophie said, pointing to a watercolor taped to the wall above her desk. It showed a colorful garden with butterflies, painted with the careful determination of a 5-year-old. The flowers were slightly lopsided. The butterflies were more blob-like than realistic. But it radiated joy. "Sophie, this is amazing," Tasha said honestly. "You're a real artist." Sophie glowed under the praise. She showed Tasha everything. Her favorite books, mostly about animals and science. Her stuffed animals, each with names and personalities. Her butterfly collection, carefully preserved in frames with labels written in Jonathan's neat handwriting. "Daddy helps me catch them," Sophie explained. "But we only collect ones that are already dead. We never hurt living butterflies." "That's very kind," Tasha said. "Butterflies are too special to hurt. Do you like butterflies too?" "I do. Very much." Sophie studied Tasha's face. "Are you going to live here now?" The question hung in the air. Tasha glanced at Jonathan, who nodded slightly. Permission to proceed with their story. "I'm going to stay for a while," Tasha said carefully. "I've been away for work, but I wanted to be here for your birthday. Would that be okay with you?" Sophie considered this seriously. "Will you help with my party?" "If you want me to." "I want you to." Sophie smiled. "I'm glad you're here. Daddy gets lonely sometimes. He thinks I don't notice, but I do." The observation hit Tasha in the chest. This child was far more perceptive than anyone gave her credit for. "Well, I'm here now," Tasha said softly. "And I'm very happy to meet you." Sophie moved closer, her small arms wrapping around Tasha in an impulsive hug. "I'm happy too." Tasha hugged her back, feeling her throat tighten with emotion. This little girl needed love so desperately. And for 1 week, Tasha would give her exactly that. Jonathan watched from the doorway, his expression unreadable but his eyes suspiciously bright. After Sophie showed Tasha every treasure in her room, it was time for the bedtime routine. Bath time first. Sophie had a bathroom connected to her room with a tub shaped like a cloud. She insisted Tasha stay while she played with bath toys and made bubble beards. "I can make a bubble hat too," Sophie demonstrated, piling bubbles on top of her head. "Very fancy," Tasha laughed. "You should wear that to school. My teacher would think I'm silly." Being silly is good sometimes. After the bath, Sophie put on fresh purple pajamas. They went back to her room for story time. Sophie chose 3 books. One about butterflies, one about space, and one about a girl who made friends with a dragon. Tasha read all 3, doing different voices for the characters. Sophie giggled at her dramatic narration. Jonathan sat in the corner, pretending to read his phone but clearly listening to every word. When the 3rd book ended, Sophie yawned. "One more?" "It's bedtime, sweetheart," Jonathan said gently. Sophie's lower lip trembled. "But Tasha just got here." "I'll be here tomorrow," Tasha promised. "And every day this week. We'll read more books tomorrow night. Do you promise?" "I promise." Sophie seemed satisfied with this. She climbed into her bed, pulling her purple comforter up to her chin. "Will you turn on my moonlight?" Tasha found the moon-shaped night light and switched it on. Soft white light filled the room. "Good night, Sophie," Tasha said. "Good night, Tasha." Sophie paused. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you my mommy?" The question stopped time. Tasha looked at Jonathan, who had frozen in the doorway. This was the moment they hadn't prepared for. The moment where truth and fiction collided. Tasha sat on the edge of Sophie's bed. "What made you ask that?" "You look like the lady in my dreams. The one who reads me stories and makes me laugh. I've been dreaming about her for a long time. And now you're here." Tears stung Tasha's eyes. How did you answer a question like that? How did you give a child hope without building a foundation on lies? I'm someone who cares about you very much, Tasha said carefully. And I'm here because I want to be. Because your daddy told me what a special girl you are. And because I think you deserve to have people who love you. So you're like a mommy? I'm like someone who wants to make you happy. Sophie considered this with the seriousness of a philosopher. Okay, that's good enough. She closed her eyes, her breathing already evening out towards sleep. Tasha sat there for another minute, watching this beautiful child drift away. Then she stood quietly and followed Jonathan out of the room. In the hallway, Jonathan leaned against the wall. I'm sorry. I didn't think she would ask so directly. She's 5. 5-year-olds ask everything directly. You handled it well. Better than I would have. They walked downstairs together. The house felt different at night. Quieter. More intimate. In the living room, Jonathan poured himself a drink. Would you like something? Water? Something stronger? Tea would be nice. He made them both tea in the kitchen, the domestic gesture feeling strange but comfortable. They sat in the living room with their cups, the silence between them thoughtful rather than awkward. She likes you, Jonathan said eventually. More than I hoped she would. She's easy to like. Most people don't take the time to see that. They see a shy, quiet child. They don't see the brilliance underneath. Tasha thought about Sophie's observations, her careful questions, her artistic soul. She's extraordinary. She is. Jonathan stared into his tea. I worry constantly that I'm not enough for her. That she needs a mother figure. That my love alone isn't sufficient. Your love is everything, Tasha said firmly. She knows you adore her. That's what matters. But she still asks about her mother. Because children need to make sense of their world. It's not about you being insufficient. It's about her trying to understand why someone left. Jonathan looked at her with surprise. You're very wise. I'm just honest. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The house was quiet except for the ticking of a grandfather clock in the hallway. Thank you for today, Jonathan said eventually. For being patient with Sophie. For reading to her. For making her laugh. You didn't have to be so kind. Yes, I did, Tasha replied. That's who I am. I don't know how to be unkind to children. Still. Thank you. Tasha finished her tea. The day had been longer than any in recent memory. She was emotionally exhausted but also strangely fulfilled. I should go to bed. What time does Sophie wake up? Around 7. She'll want breakfast with you. Then I'll be up by 6:30. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. Jonathan smiled, something warm and genuine. Sophie is lucky to have you. Even if it's only for a week. Tasha stood to leave, then paused. Jonathan? Why did you really choose me? It wasn't just because Sophie saw my picture, was it? He met her eyes. No. It was because when I looked you up, I saw someone who volunteered at children's hospitals. Someone who started a book drive for underprivileged schools. Someone who, despite having very little, always found ways to give. I needed someone kind. And you are the kindest person I could find. The words settled over Tasha like a blanket. Someone had seen her. Really seen her. Not just her desperate circumstances but her heart. Good night, Jonathan, she said softly. Good night, Tasha. She climbed the stairs to her room, her mind full of the day's events. She changed into comfortable pajamas from the shopping bags, soft cotton in a light green color. She brushed her teeth, washed her face, and climbed into the most comfortable bed she'd ever experienced. Through the walls, she could hear the house settling. Somewhere down the hall, Sophie was sleeping, dreaming her butterfly dreams. Downstairs, Jonathan was probably still sitting in the living room, processing everything. And here, in this beautiful room that wasn't really hers, Tasha lay awake thinking about the week ahead. About the little girl who needed love. About the man who was trying so hard to be everything his daughter needed. About herself and the role she had agreed to play. She thought about Sophie's question. Are you my mommy? Tasha had given the only answer she could. An answer that was true without being cruel. An answer that left room for hope without building castles on lies. But lying there in the dark, she wondered what would happen when the week ended. When she had to leave. When Sophie realized that even this temporary mother figure was temporary. Would it hurt more than never having anyone at all? Tasha pushed the thought away. She couldn't control the future. She could only control now. And right now she had promised to be here. To be kind. To give Sophie one perfect week. That would have to be enough. She closed her eyes and let sleep take her, her last thought a prayer that she wouldn't break a little girl's heart. Tasha woke to sunlight streaming through her windows and the smell of coffee drifting upstairs. She checked her phone. 6:15. She'd beaten her alarm. Her body had adjusted automatically to Sophie's schedule, ready to be there when the little girl woke. She dressed quickly in jeans and a bright blue sweater from the shopping bags. Brushed her teeth, pulled her hair into a high ponytail. Took a deep breath and headed downstairs. Jonathan was already in the kitchen making breakfast. He wore casual clothes today, dark jeans and a gray sweater that made him look less like a billionaire and more like a regular dad. He looked up when she entered, surprise crossing his face. "You're up early." "I promised Sophie I'd be here. I keep my promises." Something softened in Jonathan's expression. "Coffee? Please." He poured her a cup, added cream without asking. She realized he must have noticed how she took it last night. The small observation touched her more than it should have. "Sophie usually comes down around 7, Jonathan said, cracking eggs into a bowl. "She likes scrambled eggs and toast. Sometimes fruit. Can I help?" "You don't have to do that." "I want to." They worked together in comfortable silence. Tasha cut strawberries while Jonathan cooked eggs. She made toast. He set the table. The domesticity of it felt strange and natural at the same time. At 7 o'clock exactly, they heard small footsteps on the stairs. Sophie appeared in the doorway, wearing purple pajamas and clutching a stuffed butterfly. Her eyes lit up when she saw Tasha. "You're really here." "I told you I would be." Sophie climbed onto a chair at the kitchen table. "I dreamed about butterflies again. There were hundreds of them, all different colors. Blue ones and yellow ones and orange ones. They were flying around a garden and landing on flowers." "That sounds beautiful," Tasha said, setting a plate of eggs and toast in front of her. "Maybe we can draw your dream later." "Really? You'll draw with me?" "Of course." Sophie ate her breakfast with enthusiasm, telling them more about her dream between bites. Jonathan watched them interact with that same tender expression from yesterday. Tasha was beginning to recognize it. Relief mixed with gratitude mixed with something else she couldn't quite name. After breakfast, Jonathan had to make some business calls. "Will you two be okay for a couple hours?" he asked. "We'll be fine," Tasha assured him. "Sophie and I have plans." "We do." Sophie looked excited. "We do. Art time, remember?" When Jonathan disappeared into his study, Tasha and Sophie set up an art station in the sunroom. The space was bright and beautiful, with windows overlooking the garden. Sophie brought down her art supplies while Tasha spread newspaper over the table. They drew Sophie's butterfly dream together. Sophie worked with intense concentration, her tongue poking out slightly as she colored. Tasha drew alongside her, creating her own butterfly garden. They talked while they worked, easy conversation about everything and nothing. "Miss Tasha?" Sophie said after a while. "Yes." "Why were you away for so long?" The question caught Tasha off guard. She had known it would come eventually, but she still wasn't prepared. "I was working." "Sometimes grown-ups have to be away for work. Daddy works a lot too. But he's always here at night. Different jobs work different ways." Sophie considered this. "Did you miss me?" The innocence of the question broke Tasha's heart. How could she answer honestly without revealing the truth? "I'm here now," she said carefully. "And I'm very happy to be spending time with you." It wasn't a direct answer, but Sophie seemed satisfied. She went back to her drawing, adding more butterflies to her garden. They spent the whole morning creating art. Sophie showed Tasha how to blend colors. Tasha showed Sophie how to draw butterfly wings symmetrically. They made a mess with paint and glitter. They laughed when Sophie accidentally put a blue handprint on Tasha's sweater. "Oops," Sophie giggled. "Now I'm art too," Tasha said, making Sophie laugh harder. Jonathan emerged from his study around noon to find them both covered in paint, surrounded by artwork drying on every available surface. He stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "We made a mess," Sophie announced proudly. "I can see that." But he was smiling. "How about we clean up and go to the park? It's a beautiful day." Sophie jumped up excitedly. "Can we go to the one with the big slide? And the swings? And can Tasha come?" "Of course Tasha can come. That's why I suggested it." They cleaned up the art supplies and themselves. Sophie changed into a purple dress with white butterflies. Tasha kept her paint-stained sweater because it made Sophie laugh. Jonathan drove them to a park across town, one with elaborate playgrounds and walking trails. Sophie ran ahead to the playground equipment while Jonathan and Tasha followed at a slower pace. Other families were there, children playing, parents watching. They looked like they belonged. Just another family on a Tuesday afternoon. "Push me on the swings," Sophie called. Tasha pushed her higher and higher, until Sophie's laughter rang out across the playground. Jonathan took photos on his phone, capturing moments that looked so real Tasha almost forgot they were pretending. A woman approached with a daughter around Sophie's age. "Sophie, is that you?" Sophie jumped off the swing. "Hannah, hi." The two girls hugged. The woman, presumably Hannah's mother, smiled at Tasha and Jonathan. "You must be Sophie's parents." "I'm Jennifer, Hannah's mom. The girls are in class together." "Nice to meet you," Jonathan said smoothly. "This is my wife, Tasha." Tasha's heart skipped at the word wife, but she smiled naturally. "It's wonderful to meet you. Sophie talks about Hannah all the time." "Hannah talks about Sophie too." Jennifer looked at Tasha with interest. "I don't think I've seen you at school pickup before." "I travel a lot for work," Tasha said, using their prepared story. "I'm home for an extended visit now." "Well, it's lovely to meet you. We should set up a playdate sometime. The girls are inseparable at school." "That would be wonderful." Jennifer and Hannah left after a few more minutes of polite conversation. Sophie came running back, her face flushed with happiness. "Can Hannah come to my birthday party?" "She's already on the guest list," Jonathan assured her. They spent another hour at the park. Sophie played while Tasha and Jonathan sat on a bench nearby. The afternoon sun was warm. The air smelled like fresh-cut grass. Everything felt peaceful and perfect. "You're a natural at this," Jonathan said quietly. "At what?" "Being a mother. You knew exactly what to say to Jennifer. You knew how to make Sophie laugh. You knew when to push her on the swings and when to let her play independently. I'm just treating her like a person. Kids aren't complicated. They just want attention and kindness. It's more than that. You genuinely care about her. I can see it." Tasha watched Sophie climb the playground structure, her purple dress bright against the blue sky. "She's easy to care about." "Not everyone thinks so." Rebecca found her exhausting. "My ex-wife used to complain that Sophie needed too much attention, asked too many questions, required too much patience. Then Rebecca didn't deserve her." The words came out sharper than Tasha intended. Jonathan looked at her with surprise. "Sorry," Tasha said. "That wasn't my place." "No, you're right. Rebecca didn't deserve her. And Sophie deserves someone who sees how special she is." They sat in silence for a moment watching Sophie play. Other children had joined her on the playground equipment. She was showing them how to cross the monkey bars, her natural shyness fading in the comfort of play. "Can I ask you something?" Tasha said. "Anything." "What happens after this week?" "Not to me, I understand that part. But to Sophie. How are you going to help her process this?" Jonathan sighed. "I've been working with her therapist. We have a plan. We'll tell her you have to go back to work. That you'll visit when you can, but your job requires travel. Over time, we'll gently transition her understanding. Help her process that not all families look the same. That love doesn't require constant presence. You've thought this through." "I've thought about nothing else for weeks. This isn't just about giving her a happy birthday. It's about helping her understand that she's loved, even if the traditional family structure isn't there." Tasha appreciated his honesty. His willingness to think long-term about Sophie's emotional well-being. Too many parents focused only on immediate happiness without considering future consequences. Sophie ran back to them out of breath and beaming. "I'm hungry." "Then let's go home and make lunch," Jonathan said. On the drive back, Sophie chattered about her playground adventures. About the new friends she made. About how high she swung. About the butterflies she saw near the flowers. Her energy was infectious. At home they made lunch together. Grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup. Sophie insisted on helping, carefully spreading butter on bread slices. They ate in the kitchen, casual and comfortable. After lunch, Sophie started yawning. "I'm not tired," she insisted even as her eyes drooped. "How about quiet time?" Tasha suggested. "We can read books in your room." "Will you read to me?" "Of course." They went upstairs to Sophie's room. Sophie chose 3 books from her collection and climbed into bed, even though it was only 2 in the afternoon. Tasha sat beside her, reading softly. Before the second book ended, Sophie was asleep, her head on Tasha's lap. Tasha sat there for a while watching her sleep. This beautiful, sweet, intelligent child who had been abandoned by the person who should have loved her most. Who had built fantasies about a mother who never came back. Who deserved so much more than she'd been given. Tasha carefully moved Sophie's head to a pillow and covered her with a blanket. She slipped out of the room quietly, leaving the door cracked. Jonathan was waiting in the hallway. She fell asleep? Out like a light. The park tired her out. Thank you for today. For the art. For the park. For just being present. You keep thanking me. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. You're giving my daughter something priceless. The least I can do is acknowledge it. They stood in the hallway, something unspoken hanging between them. Tasha was acutely aware of how close they were standing. How his eyes seemed to really see her. How her heart beat a little faster when he smiled. I should let you get back to work, she said, breaking the moment. Actually, I'm done for the day. I cleared my schedule this week to spend time with Sophie. With both of you. That's good. She needs that. Would you like to help me plan her birthday party? I have ideas, but I'm not particularly creative with these things. I'd love to help. They spent the afternoon planning together. Going through party supply catalogs. Discussing themes. Sophie wanted butterflies, of course, so they planned everything around that. Purple and white decorations. Butterfly-shaped cookies. A cake designed to look like a garden. Party games involving caterpillar races and wing decorating. Tasha sketched out ideas while Jonathan took notes. They worked well together, their ideas building on each other naturally. Time passed without Tasha noticing, the afternoon slipping away in comfortable productivity. Sophie woke up around 4, refreshed and energetic. She joined them in the planning, adding her own ideas. She wanted face painting. She wanted butterfly balloons. She wanted a treasure hunt where guests searched for hidden plastic butterflies. That's a great idea, Tasha said. We can make it educational too. Each butterfly can have a fact attached, and whoever collects the most learns the most about butterflies. Sophie's face glowed. I love that. They ordered dinner instead of cooking, Chinese food that Sophie picked out. They ate in the living room, sitting on the floor around the coffee table like it was a picnic. Sophie showed them both how to use chopsticks properly, giggling when Jonathan dropped his noodles. After dinner they played board games. Then it was time for Sophie's bath and bedtime routine. This time Tasha knew what to do. She helped with the bath, read the bedtime stories, turned on the moon night light. Today was the best day, Sophie said sleepily. It was pretty great, Tasha agreed. Will we have more days like this? We have 5 more days this week. Let's make them all great. Okay. Sophie's eyes fluttered closed. Good night, Tasha. Good night, sweet girl. Downstairs, Jonathan had made tea again. Tasha was starting to recognize this as their routine. The end-of-day debrief where they processed everything that happened. She called you sweet girl, Jonathan said, handing her a cup. She did. She's never had anyone call her that before. Pet names aren't really my strength. They're terms of affection. They just happen naturally. Nothing about you seems forced. Everything you do with Sophie feels genuine. Because it is genuine. I care about her. After one day? After 1 minute. The moment she walked into that room yesterday with her butterfly backpack and her shy smile, I cared. That's just how I'm built. Jonathan studied her over his teacup. You're remarkable. You know that. Tasha felt heat rise to her cheeks. I'm just being myself. Exactly. And yourself is remarkable. They talked for another hour, sharing stories from their past. Jonathan told her about building his company from the ground up. About the long nights and risky decisions. About the satisfaction of creating something meaningful. Tasha told him about her mother, about the books she loved, about her dreams of one day opening her own bookstore. Why don't you? Jonathan asked. After this week. Use the money to start your bookstore. I don't know anything about running a business. You can learn. I could help you. Business plans, financing, location scouting. It's not as complicated as you might think. The offer was generous. But Tasha couldn't think that far ahead yet. The week had barely started and she was already too emotionally invested. Thinking about after felt dangerous. Maybe, she said noncommittally. Jonathan seemed to understand. He didn't push. They finished their tea in comfortable silence, the house quiet around them. That night, lying in her comfortable bed, Tasha thought about the day. About art projects and playground visits. About Sophie's laughter and Jonathan's quiet kindness. About how quickly this had started to feel real. She was supposed to be pretending. But somewhere between the butterfly facts and the grilled cheese sandwiches, between the swing pushing and the bedtime stories, Tasha had stopped acting. She genuinely cared about Sophie. And that terrified her. Because in 5 more days she would have to leave. And caring made leaving hurt. But she couldn't stop herself. Sophie needed love and Tasha had love to give. The consequences would come later. For now she would just be present. Just be kind. Just be there. That was all she could do. The next 3 days fell into a beautiful rhythm. Tasha woke early, made breakfast with Jonathan, greeted Sophie with smiles and butterfly facts. They spent mornings doing activities together. Art projects, baking cookies, reading books. Afternoons at the park or in the garden. Evenings with dinner and games and bedtime routines. Sophie bloomed under the constant attention. Her shyness faded. Her laughter came more easily. She started calling Tasha without the hesitation, without the questions in her eyes. Just simple acceptance that Tasha was there and would remain there. Jonathan watched it all with mixed emotions. Tasha could read plainly. Gratitude that his daughter was happy. Anxiety about what would happen when the week ended. And something else, something softer, whenever he looked at Tasha. On Thursday evening, 3 days before Sophie's birthday, Jonathan announced they had an event to attend. There's a charity gala tomorrow night, he explained after Sophie went to bed. It's for children's hospitals. I'm one of the sponsors. People will expect to see me there. Okay, Tasha said. You and Sophie will have fun. No. I need you to come with me. As my wife. Tasha's heart skipped. That wasn't part of the arrangement. You said this was just for Sophie's world. Her friends, her birthday party. I know. But people from my business world will be at this gala. People who know I have a daughter. If I show up alone again, they'll ask questions. And those questions might filter back to Sophie's social circle. It's better if we present a united front. Tasha understood the logic. But going to a public event as Jonathan's wife felt like a bigger step than anything they'd done so far. I don't have anything to wear to a gala. Already handled. My assistant will bring something tomorrow. Jonathan, I don't know if I can pull this off. Fooling Sophie's 5-year-old friends is one thing. Fooling business professionals is another. You pulled off fooling Hannah's mother at the park. You were perfect. Natural and confident and exactly right. That was casual conversation. This is a formal event. Jonathan moved closer, his expression earnest. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Please. I'll be with you the entire time. I'll introduce you to people, handle the conversations. All you have to do is smile and let people assume we're happy together. Tasha wanted to refuse. But looking at Jonathan's desperate face, thinking about how this would protect Sophie's carefully constructed reality, she couldn't say no. Okay. I'll go. Relief flooded his features. Thank you. Truly. The next day passed in a blur of Sophie-focused activities, but Tasha's mind kept drifting to the evening ahead. Jonathan's assistant arrived at 4 with a garment bag and shoe box. Inside was the most beautiful dress Tasha had ever seen. Bright red silk, floor-length, with a fitted bodice and flowing skirt. Elegant but not over the top. Sophisticated without being stuffy. Matching red heels. Simple jewelry, understated but clearly expensive. At 6 o'clock, Tasha began getting ready. She showered, styled her hair in loose curls that cascaded over one shoulder. Applied makeup more carefully than she had in years. Slipped into the red dress that fit like it was made for her. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. She looked like someone who belonged at a gala. Someone who could be a billionaire's wife. Downstairs, Sophie gasped when she saw Tasha. You look like a princess. Thank you, sweetheart. Jonathan appeared from his room in a tailored tuxedo. He stopped short when he saw Tasha, his expression arrested. You look stunning. Heat crept up Tasha's neck. Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself. Maria would be staying with Sophie for the evening. They said goodnight to her, promising to tell her all about the party tomorrow. Sophie hugged them both, and for a moment they really were just parents heading out for an evening. The car ride to the gala was quiet. Tasha's nerves increased with every mile. Jonathan seemed to sense her anxiety. Just be yourself, he said softly. That's all you need to do. What if someone asks specific questions about our marriage? About how we met? About our history? We met at a technology conference 5 years ago. You were there representing a publishing company interested in educational software. We dated for 6 months before I proposed. We got married in a small ceremony because you preferred intimate gatherings. You travel frequently for your consulting work with various publishers. We make it work because we love each other. Tasha absorbed the prepared story. It was detailed enough to be believable but vague enough to avoid scrutiny. You've thought about this. I've thought about everything. I couldn't ask you to do this without preparation. The gala was held at a hotel ballroom downtown. They pulled up to a red carpet entrance with photographers and other elegantly dressed attendees. Jonathan came around to open Tasha's door, offering his hand to help her out. The moment felt cinematic. Cameras flashed. People turned to look. Jonathan's hand was warm and steady in hers. Ready? He asked quietly. No. But let's do this anyway. They walked into the ballroom together. The space was magnificent, decorated in golds and whites. Crystal chandeliers. Round tables with elaborate centerpieces. A small orchestra playing soft jazz. Waiters circulated with champagne and appetizers. Immediately, people approached Jonathan. Business associates, fellow sponsors, hospital administrators. Jonathan introduced Tasha to each one, his hand never leaving the small of her back. Protective. Possessive. Exactly like a devoted husband. So wonderful to finally meet you, one woman gushed. Jonathan talks about you and Sophie all the time. Tasha smiled. He's devoted to our daughter. We both are. It must be hard with your travel schedule. It is. But we make it work. Family comes first. The woman seemed satisfied with this answer. Throughout the evening, similar conversations repeated. People curious about Jonathan's mysterious wife who they'd heard about but never met. Tasha navigated each interaction with grace she didn't know she possessed. Jonathan stayed close, just as he'd promised. His presence was reassuring. When conversation lagged, he smoothly redirected. When questions became too personal, he deflected with charm. They moved through the crowd like a team, synchronized and natural. During dinner, they sat at a table with other major sponsors. The conversation flowed around technology trends, charitable giving, hospital expansions. Tasha contributed when appropriate, mostly listening and learning. The man next to her, elderly and kind-faced, leaned over. Your husband speaks very highly of you. He's biased, Tasha said with a smile. Perhaps. But I've known Jonathan for 10 years. I've never seen him this happy. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. The words settled over Tasha like a weight. Because they weren't true. This happiness was temporary. Built on pretense. In 2 more days it would end. After dinner came speeches and presentations. The hospital director spoke about new programs. Sick children appeared on video screens, thanking donors. The room was moved to tears multiple times. Jonathan leaned close during one particularly emotional video. This is why I do what I do. So kids like Sophie, kids who need medical care, have access to the best possible treatment. Tasha saw him in a new light. Not just as a desperate father or a billionaire CEO. As a man who genuinely wanted to make the world better. When the formal program ended, dancing began. Couples moved to the floor as the orchestra played a waltz. Jonathan stood, offering his hand. Dance with me? Tasha's heart raced. I'm not a good dancer. Neither am I. We'll figure it out together. On the dance floor, Jonathan's hand found her waist. Her hand rested on his shoulder. They swayed to the music, finding a rhythm that worked for them. Around them, other couples danced with practiced ease. But Tasha and Jonathan moved in their own bubble, focused only on each other. Thank you for tonight, Jonathan said quietly. For being here. For handling everything so well. You made it easy. No, you made it easy. You're a natural at this. At being present. At making people comfortable. They danced in silence for a moment, the music swelling around them. Tasha was acutely aware of Jonathan's hand on her waist, warm through the silk of her dress. Of his eyes on her face, studying her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Tasha, he started then stopped. What? Nothing. Never mind. But something had shifted between them. Something beyond their arrangement. Beyond pretense. Something real and dangerous and impossible to ignore. The song ended. They returned to their table. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of more conversations, more champagne, more careful pretending. By the time they left, Tasha's feet ached and her smile felt permanent. In the car, she slipped off her heels with a sigh of relief. I don't know how people do this regularly. Jonathan laughed. They have more practice. You were perfect tonight. Better than perfect. I just followed your lead. No, you were yourself. And yourself is exactly right. At home, they found Sophie asleep on the couch, clutching her stuffed butterfly. Maria had fallen asleep in the armchair nearby. Jonathan gently woke his nanny, thanked her, sent her home. Then he carefully picked up Sophie. I've got her, he whispered. Tasha followed them upstairs. They tucked Sophie into bed together, a team even in this small domestic moment. Sophie stirred slightly but didn't wake. Just sighed contentedly and burrowed deeper into her purple blankets. In the hallway, Jonathan turned to Tasha. Tonight meant more than you realize. People see me differently now. Not as the workaholic single father. As someone balanced. Someone who has a partner. But it's not real. No. But it felt real. Didn't it? Tasha couldn't answer that. Because yes, it had felt real. Terrifyingly real. She had forgotten she was pretending. Had forgotten this was temporary. Had let herself feel things she had no business feeling. "Good night, Jonathan," she said, needing space to process everything. "Good night, Tasha." In her room, Tasha carefully hung up the red dress. She removed the jewelry, washed off the makeup, let down her hair. But she couldn't wash away the memory of Jonathan's hand on her waist. His eyes meeting hers across the ballroom. His quiet thanks and genuine admiration. She climbed into bed, her mind racing. Tomorrow was Saturday. Sophie's birthday party was Sunday. Which meant Monday the arrangement would end. She would take her second payment and leave. The thought made her chest ache. Somewhere along the way this had stopped being just a job. Just a transaction. It had become something real. Sophie had become someone she genuinely cared about. Someone she would miss terribly when she left. And Jonathan had become someone who made her heart race. Someone whose smile affected her far more than it should. Someone she was dangerously close to having real feelings for. This was supposed to be simple. A week of pretending. Money to rebuild her life. A clear transaction with defined boundaries. But nothing about this felt simple anymore. Tasha closed her eyes, willing sleep to come. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Sophie's growing attachment. The birthday party preparations. The looming goodbye. Tonight she would just rest. Just be grateful for the beautiful evening. Just acknowledge that sometimes, the best pretending happens when you stop pretending at all. Saturday morning arrived with rain. Soft, steady rain that tapped against the windows and made the whole house feel cozy. Tasha woke to find a note slipped under her door. "Sophie wants to make her birthday cake today. Join us in the kitchen whenever you're ready. No rush. Jay." Tasha smiled at the note, then dressed quickly. Jeans and a comfortable green sweater. She found Jonathan and Sophie in the kitchen, already pulling out mixing bowls and ingredients. "Tasha," Sophie called excitedly, "we're making my butterfly cake. Daddy says you can help." "I would love to help." They spent the morning baking together. Sophie was in charge of measuring ingredients, taking her job very seriously. Jonathan handled the oven. Tasha managed the mixing and the decorating plants. Flour ended up everywhere. On the counter, on their clothes, in Sophie's hair. When Jonathan tried to crack an egg, he got shell fragments in the bowl. Sophie giggled. Tasha fished them out with a spoon. "I'm not usually this bad at cooking," Jonathan protested. "Yes you are, Daddy," Sophie said matter-of-factly. "Remember when you tried to make pancakes and they turned out like rocks? That was one time. 3 times. Tasha laughed, joining in their easy banter. The kitchen filled with the smell of baking cake. They made 3 layers, chocolate with vanilla buttercream. While they cooled, they cleaned up the mess they'd made. After lunch, they assembled the cake. Tasha had sketched a design the night before. A garden scene with butterflies. They used green frosting for grass, colorful flowers made from fondant, and delicate butterflies cut from edible paper. Sophie watched with fascination as Tasha carefully placed each element. "It's so pretty. It will be even prettier when we're done. Want to help place the butterflies?" Sophie nodded eagerly. Together, they positioned butterflies across the cake, creating the illusion of a garden in full bloom. Jonathan took pictures documenting the process. When they finished, they stood back to admire their work. The cake was beautiful, far better than Tasha expected. The colors were vibrant. The design was charming. It looked professional despite being homemade. "This is the best birthday cake ever," Sophie declared. "We still have to taste it," Jonathan pointed out. "Can we have a piece now?" Sophie asked hopefully. "After dinner," Jonathan said. "If we eat it now, there won't be any left for your party tomorrow." Sophie pouted but accepted this logic. They carefully moved the cake to the refrigerator, handling it like precious cargo. The rain continued through the afternoon. They decided to have a movie day, building a fort in the living room with blankets and pillows. Sophie chose an animated movie about butterflies, naturally. They made popcorn and hot chocolate. Cuddled under blankets in their fort, watching the movie, Tasha felt something dangerous. Contentment. Belonging. Like this was her family, her life, her home. Sophie sat between her and Jonathan, holding both their hands. She laughed at the funny parts of the movie. Asked questions during the quiet parts. Leaned against Tasha when she got sleepy. Jonathan met Tasha's eyes over Sophie's head. Something passed between them. Acknowledgement of how right this felt. How easy it would be to let this become real. When the movie ended, Sophie yawned. "Can we play a game?" "What kind of game?" Jonathan asked. "Family game. Where we pretend to be different animals and have to guess who we are." They spent the next hour being silly. Jonathan was an elephant, terrible at hiding his size. Tasha was a bird, making exaggerated flying motions. Sophie was a butterfly, of course, spinning and dancing around the living room. Dinner was simple, takeout pizza that Sophie helped order. They ate in their blanket fort, making it a picnic. Sophie talked excitedly about her party tomorrow, about which friends were coming, about the games they would play, about how everyone would see her beautiful butterfly cake. After dinner, during Sophie's bath time, Jonathan and Tasha reviewed the party plans. Everything was ready. Decorations purchased. Activities planned. Goodie bags assembled. All that remained was the actual event. Are you nervous? Tasha asked. About the party? No. About after the party? Jonathan paused. Yes. We don't have to think about that yet. Don't we? The party is tomorrow. Our arrangement ends Monday. That's not far away. Tasha didn't want to have this conversation. Not when everything felt so good. Not when she could still pretend this was permanent. Let's just focus on making Sophie's birthday perfect. Tasha, I need to say something. Don't? She knew what he was going to say. She could see it in his eyes. And she couldn't hear it, because hearing it would make leaving impossible. Please, just let us have tomorrow. Jonathan studied her face, then nodded. Okay, tomorrow first. Everything else later. That night, after Sophie was tucked in, Tasha and Jonathan sat in the living room. The rain had stopped. Moonlight streamed through the windows. The house was quiet and peaceful. Can I ask you something? Jonathan said. Depends on the question. If circumstances were different, if we had met normally, would you want this? A relationship with me. A life with Sophie. Tasha's heart hammered. This was exactly the conversation she wanted to avoid. But looking at Jonathan's earnest face, she couldn't lie. Yes, but circumstances aren't different. And wanting something doesn't make it possible. Why not? Because this started as a transaction. Because I'm leaving Monday with money that I desperately need. Because Sophie deserves better than a relationship built on pretense. But it's not pretense anymore. Is it? No, it wasn't. Somewhere between the butterfly facts and the birthday cake, between the gala dancing and the blanket fort, everything had become real. But admitting that felt too dangerous. Jonathan, don't do this. Don't do what? Don't tell you that I've developed feelings for you? Don't acknowledge that Sophie has completely fallen in love with you? Don't admit that this week has been the happiest I've been in years? Tasha stood, needing distance. You're confusing gratitude with feelings. I helped you with Sophie. I played a role. That's all this is. You know that's not true. It has to be true. Because the alternative is too complicated. Jonathan stood too, moving closer. Complicated doesn't mean wrong. It doesn't mean right either. They stood there, inches apart, the tension between them thick enough to touch. Tasha's heart raced. She wanted to close the distance. Wanted to let herself feel everything she'd been pushing down all week. Wanted to believe this could somehow work. But reality was immovable. She had been hired for a job. The job was almost complete. Walking away was the professional thing. The right thing. The only thing that made sense. I care about you, Jonathan said softly. About who you are. About your kindness and your strength and the way you make Sophie laugh. About how you turned my house into a home this week. About how right this all feels. Jonathan, please stop. What? Because it scares you? It scares me too. But that doesn't make it less real. Tears stung Tasha's eyes. I can't have this conversation. Not tonight. Not before Sophie's party. I need to be focused on her tomorrow. On making her day perfect. Can we please just table this until after? Jonathan searched her face, then stepped back. Okay. After the party. But Tasha, we are having this conversation. Because I can't let you walk away without telling you how I feel. Without at least trying to see if this could be something real. Tasha nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. She fled upstairs to her room, closing the door behind her. She leaned against it, breathing hard, her emotions in chaos. This wasn't supposed to happen. She was supposed to pretend for a week, take her money and leave. Simple. Plain. Uncomplicated. But nothing was simple anymore. She had fallen for Sophie completely. The little girl with her butterfly obsession and her shy smile and her genuine sweetness. Leaving her would hurt. And Jonathan. With his dedication to his daughter and his quiet kindness and his willingness to do anything for the people he loved. She had developed feelings for him too. Real, dangerous, impossible feelings. But what could come of it? She had been hired. She was being paid. Their entire relationship was built on a foundation of pretense and desperation. Could something real grow from that? Tasha changed into pajamas, washed her face, climbed into bed. But sleep wouldn't come. Her mind spun with possibilities and problems. With hope and fear. With the memory of Jonathan's voice saying he had feelings for her. Tomorrow was Sophie's birthday. That had to be the focus. Making a 5-year-old's dream come true. Everything else could wait. Had to wait. Even if waiting felt impossible. Sunday morning dawned bright and clear, as if the universe knew it needed to cooperate for Sophie's special day. Tasha woke early, nerves and anticipation mixing in equal measure. Today was the reason for all of this. The culmination of the week's pretending. Sophie's birthday party. She found Jonathan already up, arranging decorations in the backyard. Purple and white streamers hung from trees. Butterfly balloons floated at various heights. Tables were set up with butterfly-themed centerpieces. A bounce house shaped like a garden was being inflated by workers. "You've been busy," Tasha said, carrying 2 cups of coffee out to him. "Couldn't sleep," Jonathan admitted, taking a cup gratefully. "Wanted everything perfect." "It already is. Sophie will love this." They worked together to finish the setup. Tasha arranged the craft station where kids would decorate butterfly wings. Jonathan set up the treasure hunt area, hiding plastic butterflies around the yard. They tested the sound system for party music. Everything fell into place. At 8 o'clock, Sophie woke up. They heard her running down the stairs. "Is it my birthday?" "It is," Jonathan said, sweeping her into a hug. "Happy birthday, sweetheart." "Happy birthday, Sophie," Tasha added, joining the embrace. Sophie squeezed them both. "This is the best birthday already because you're both here." Tasha's heart squeezed. This beautiful child, so happy with simple presents. With being seen and loved and celebrated. They made Sophie's favorite breakfast, chocolate chip pancakes with whipped cream. She wore her birthday crown, a sparkly purple tiara they'd bought earlier in the week. She chattered about the party, about her friends coming, about the games they'd play. "What time do people arrive?" Sophie asked for the 3rd time. 2 o'clock, Jonathan said patiently. "We have plenty of time. But I'm excited now." "I know, baby. How about we get you dressed in your party outfit and then you can help with final preparations?" Sophie agreed enthusiastically. Tasha helped her into the new purple dress they'd picked out together. It was perfect, with sparkly butterfly details and a full skirt that twirled. Sophie wore white shoes and butterfly hair clips. She looked like a princess. At 1:30, the caterers arrived with food. Butterfly-shaped sandwiches, fruit arranged like a garden, vegetable sticks with colorful dips. The beautifully decorated cake took pride of place on the dessert table. Everything looked magazine-worthy. Guests started arriving at 2. Children in party clothes, parents bearing gifts. Tasha and Jonathan greeted everyone together, playing their roles as Sophie's parents perfectly. No one questioned their relationship. They simply accepted the happy family they presented. Sophie was in her element. She showed her friends the backyard decorations. She introduced them to Tasha with pride. "This is my mommy. She came home for my birthday." Each time Sophie said it, Tasha felt a knife twist in her chest. Because tomorrow this would end. Tomorrow, Sophie would have to learn that even this temporary mother figure was leaving. But today wasn't about tomorrow. Today was about making this little girl's dream come true. What would you sacrifice to make a child happy? Sometimes love means giving everything even when it breaks your heart. Drop a comment if you believe kindness matters most. Don't forget to subscribe for more emotional stories. The party activities went perfectly. The treasure hunt had children running around the yard, collecting butterflies and reading facts. Sophie collected the most, beaming with pride. The craft station was a huge hit, with every child decorating their own butterfly wings to take home. Face painting turned everyone into butterflies, ladybugs, and flowers. The bounce house never stopped bouncing. Music played. Children laughed. Parents mingled. Tasha watched it all with bittersweet joy. This was what childhood should look like. Happiness and celebration and endless possibility. Sophie deserved this always, not just for one day. Jonathan found her during a quiet moment. "You okay?" "Just taking it all in." "She's having the time of her life." "She is." "You did good, Jonathan. This party is perfect." "We did good. I couldn't have done this without you." They watched Sophie together, this child who had brought them into each other's lives. She was surrounded by friends, covered in face paint, wearing her butterfly wings, absolutely radiant with happiness. At 4 o'clock it was time for cake. Everyone gathered around the dessert table. They sang happy birthday. Sophie closed her eyes to make a wish before blowing out her candles. Tasha wondered what she wished for. Probably something impossible. Something beautiful. The cake tasted as good as it looked. Rich chocolate with perfect buttercream. Children and parents alike praised it. Sophie saved her a piece for later, wanting to preserve the beautiful decorations a little longer. Gifts came next. Sophie opened each one with genuine gratitude, thanking the gift giver properly. Books about butterflies, art supplies, science kits. Each gift was perfect for her interest. She was blessed with good friends who really knew her. By 6 o'clock, the party wound down. Parents collected tired, happy children. Goodbyes were exchanged. Thank yous repeated. Sophie hugged each friend goodbye, her energy finally flagging. When the last guest left, Sophie flopped onto the grass. That was the best party ever. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Jonathan said, sitting beside her. Can we do it again next year? We can absolutely have another party next year. With Tasha. The question hung in the air. Jonathan looked at Tasha helplessly. They'd been avoiding this conversation all day. But Sophie deserved an answer. Tasha sat on Sophie's other side. Sophie, we need to talk about something important. Okay. Sophie sat up, suddenly serious. Remember how I said I was home for your birthday? That I'd been away working? Yes. Well, I have to go back to work soon. My job requires me to travel a lot. So I won't be able to be here all the time. Sophie's face fell. You're leaving? Not today. But soon. My work is important and I have responsibilities. Can't you work from here? Daddy works from home sometimes. My job is different. It requires me to be in other places. Tears welled in Sophie's eyes. But I want you to stay. I want you to be here. I want you to be my mommy for real. The words broke Tasha's heart. She pulled Sophie into a hug, feeling the little girl's tears soak into her shirt. I know, sweetheart. I know. Why do people always leave? Sophie sobbed. My real mommy left. Now you're leaving. Why doesn't anyone want to stay? Jonathan wrapped his arms around both of them. Sophie, listen to me. Tasha isn't leaving because she doesn't love you. Sometimes grown-ups have responsibilities that take them away. But that doesn't mean they stop caring. Then why can't she stay? If she cares, why can't she just stay? Tasha met Jonathan's eyes over Sophie's head. She saw her own pain reflected there. They'd known this would be hard. But knowing and experiencing were vastly different things. Life is complicated sometimes, Tasha said gently. But I promise, this week with you has been one of the happiest times of my life. You are such a special girl, Sophie. So smart and kind and creative. Any mother would be lucky to have you. But I want you. I know. And I will always care about you. Always. Even when I'm not here. Sophie cried harder. They sat there on the grass in the growing evening, holding each other, processing the grief of an ending that hadn't even happened yet. Eventually, Sophie's tears subsided into hiccups. Can we call sometimes? Can you send me pictures of the places you go? Of course, Tasha promised, even though she had no idea if that would be possible. If maintaining contact would help or hurt. But right now, Sophie needed hope. Okay, Sophie whispered. I'm sad. But okay. They went inside. Sophie was exhausted from the party and the emotional conversation. Bath time was quiet. Story time was subdued. But Sophie held Tasha's hand the entire time, as if afraid she might disappear in the night. I love you, Tasha, Sophie whispered as she drifted off to sleep. Tasha's eyes filled with tears. I love you too, sweet girl. So very much. She left Sophie's room and found Jonathan waiting in the hallway. Without a word, they went downstairs to the living room. The house was quiet. The party decorations still hung outside. The day had been perfect. But perfection was temporary. That was harder than I expected, Jonathan said. She's hurting. We hurt her. We also gave her a beautiful birthday. A week of love and attention. Those memories will matter. Will they? Or will they just be painful reminders of what she lost? Jonathan moved closer. Tasha, we need to have that conversation now. About us. About what happens next. I leave tomorrow. That's what happens. I take my payment and I go. That was always the plan. Plans can change. Not this one. Why not? Jonathan's voice rose with frustration. Why are you so determined to leave? You love Sophie. I know you do. I've seen it all week. And I think you have feelings for me too. So why are you running? Because this isn't real, Tasha said, her own voice rising. This whole week has been pretend. A role I was paid to play. You can't build something real on that foundation. It stopped being pretend days ago. You know it did. Knowing it and admitting it are different things. Jonathan, you're confusing gratitude with love. You're grateful I helped with Sophie. That doesn't mean you actually want a relationship with me. Don't tell me what I feel, Jonathan said firmly. I know the difference between gratitude and genuine emotion. I have fallen for you. Your kindness, your strength, the way you love my daughter. The way you make me want to be better. That's not gratitude. That's real. Tasha's resolve cracked. Even if that's true, it doesn't change anything. I was hired for a job. I took money. Sophie thinks I'm someone I'm not. How do we build truth from lies? By choosing to make it real. By deciding that what started as an arrangement became something more. People fall in love in unconventional ways all the time. Why can't this be one of them? Because Sophie deserves better. She deserves a mother who chose her, not someone her father hired. You did choose her. Every day this week, you chose to give her more than the arrangement required. You chose to love her genuinely. That matters more than how it started. Tasha wiped at tears that wouldn't stop falling. What are you asking me? I'm asking you to stay. Not as an employee. Not as part of an arrangement. As someone who wants to be here. As someone who could maybe, eventually, become part of this family for real. You're crazy. Probably. But I've never been more certain of anything. Stay, Tasha. Stay and let's figure this out together. You don't have to pretend anymore. Just be yourself and let us see where this goes. And what about the money? What about our agreement? Keep the money. It's yours regardless. I'm not asking you to stay because of our arrangement. I'm asking because I want you here. Because Sophie wants you here. Because this feels right. Tasha looked at him, this man who had entered her life a week ago with an impossible request. Who had given her hope when she had none. Who was now offering her something even more impossible. A future. A family. A real relationship. It terrified her. But it also felt like the answer to prayers she'd been too afraid to speak. I need time to think, she said finally. Take all the time you need. Just don't leave tomorrow without giving this real consideration. Please. Tasha nodded, unable to promise more than that. She went upstairs to her room, her mind spinning. Everything had changed. Everything. Tomorrow was supposed to be an ending. But maybe it could be a beginning instead. She was brave enough to let it. Tasha didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Jonathan's words running through her mind on repeat. Stay. Just be yourself. Let's figure this out together. It sounded so simple. But nothing about this was simple. She thought about Sophie's tears. About her question, why doesn't anyone want to stay? About the pain in her voice when she realized Tasha was leaving. She thought about Jonathan's confession. About the sincerity in his eyes. About how he'd said he'd fallen for her. Not for the role she played. For her. She thought about the week. About butterfly facts and birthday cakes. About gala dances and blanket forts. About a little girl who called her mommy and a man who looked at her like she mattered. Could something real come from such an impossible beginning? Dawn broke, painting her room in soft pink light. Tasha had no answers. Just questions and fear and hope all tangled together. She heard Sophie wake up. Heard small footsteps in the hallway. Then her door opened quietly. Tasha? Sophie's voice was small. Are you awake? I'm awake, sweet girl. Come here. Sophie climbed into bed with her, snuggling close. I'm sad. I know. But I don't want to be sad on my birthday weekend. I want to be happy because yesterday was perfect. But I can't stop thinking about you leaving. Tasha hugged her tighter. What if I told you I was thinking about staying? Sophie pulled back, her eyes wide. Really? You mean it? I mean, I'm thinking about it. It's complicated, Sophie. Grown-up stuff that I'm trying to figure out. What's complicated? Either you stay or you go. Staying is better. It is better. You're right. I just need to make sure I'm making the right choice for the right reasons. Sophie settled back against her. Daddy likes you. A lot. I can tell. How can you tell? He smiles more. He laughs at your jokes. He watches you when you're not looking, like he's making sure you're really there. That's how people act when they like someone. I see it in movies. Tasha smiled despite herself. Sophie's observations were too accurate. You're very smart. I know. So will you stay? I'm thinking about it. That's all I can promise right now. Okay. Thinking is good. Daddy thinks a lot too before he makes big decisions. They lay there together until Jonathan knocked on the door. Everyone okay in there? Come in, Tasha called. Jonathan entered, already dressed, carrying a tray. I brought breakfast. Thought we could have a lazy morning after yesterday's excitement. He'd made pancakes, fresh fruit, orange juice. They ate breakfast in bed, the three of them talking about the party, about funny moments and happy surprises, avoiding the elephant in the room. After breakfast, Sophie wanted to play in her room. Tasha and Jonathan helped her set up an elaborate butterfly habitat with her stuffed animals. Then they left her to her imagination. Downstairs, reality awaited. "Have you thought about what I said?" Jonathan asked. "I haven't thought about anything else." "And?" Tasha took a deep breath. "I'm scared. This whole thing terrifies me. We barely know each other. We met under the strangest circumstances. Everything about this is unconventional and potentially problematic. But I can't deny that this week has meant everything to me. That Sophie has completely stolen my heart. That when I think about leaving, I can't breathe properly. That when I look at you, I feel things I haven't felt in years." Hope blazed in Jonathan's eyes. "So stay. It's not that simple. What would this look like? Would I just live here? Would we date? Would we tell Sophie the truth about how we met? What about my mother? What about my life? We'd figure it out. Together. Yes, you would live here. In the guest room for now with your own space. We'd date properly. Get to know each other without the pressure of pretending. As for Sophie, we'd tell her an edited version of the truth. That I hired you to help with her birthday, but we fell for each other genuinely. Kids understand love, even when it's complicated. And my mother? Bring her here. This house is huge. She could have her own suite. You could take care of her properly while she finishes recovering." Tasha stared at him. "You've thought about this." "I told you. I've thought about everything. I want this, Tasha. I want you here. Not because of Sophie, though that's part of it. But because you make me happy. Because talking to you is easy. Because I want to know everything about you. Your favorite books, your dreams, what makes you laugh. I want to take you to dinner and hold your hand and see where this goes naturally. What if it doesn't work? What if we try and fail? Sophie would be hurt again. What if it does work? What if we're brave enough to try and we build something beautiful? Sophie would have a real family. You'd have a home. We'd have each other." Tasha felt tears coming again. "This is insane. The best things usually are. I don't know if I can do this." "Yes, you can. You're the bravest person I know. You accepted an impossible job from a stranger. You opened your heart to a child you'd never met. You can do this too." Tasha closed her eyes. Her whole life had been about playing it safe, making careful choices, protecting herself. And where had that gotten her? Sitting on concrete steps with eviction notices, nowhere to turn. Jonathan was offering her everything. Security, love, family. All she had to do was be brave enough to reach for it. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay. I'll stay. I'll try. I can't promise it will work, but I'll try." Jonathan's face transformed with joy. He pulled her into a hug, holding her tight. "Thank you. Thank you for giving this a chance." "We need ground rules," Tasha said, her voice muffled against his shoulder. "We take things slow. We date properly. We don't rush anything. And if at any point this stops feeling right, we're honest about it. Sophie's well-being comes first. Always." "Agreed. All of that." They pulled apart, both smiling, both terrified, both hopeful. This was happening. She was staying. "Should we tell Sophie?" Tasha asked. "Let's tell her together." They found Sophie in her room, arranging her stuffed animals in rows. She looked up when they entered, her expression guarded, bracing for bad news. "Sophie, we want to talk to you," Jonathan said, sitting on her bed. Tasha sat beside him. "About Tasha leaving?" Sophie's voice was small. "About Tasha staying," Tasha corrected. Sophie's eyes went wide. "Really? You're staying?" "I'm staying. Not because of work or arrangements, but because I want to. Because I love you and I love spending time with your daddy. And I'd like to see what happens if we try to build a real family together." "Like a forever family?" "We hope so. But we have to take it slow. Get to know each other better. Make sure it's the right choice for everyone." Sophie launched herself at them, hugging them both fiercely. "This is the best birthday present ever. Even better than all my party presents combined." They held her close, the three of them, a family born from impossible circumstances but becoming real through choice and love. "Can I call you Mom?" Sophie asked suddenly. Tasha hesitated. "How about we stick with Tasha for now? That name is special because it's just between us. When you're ready and if this all works out the way we hope, maybe we can talk about other names." Sophie nodded, satisfied with this answer. "Okay. But I'm going to think of you as my mom. Even if I don't say it out loud yet. I can live with that." They spent the rest of the day being lazy together. No pressure, no schedule. They watched movies, played games, made simple meals. It felt different than the previous days. Less like performing and more like simply living. That evening, after Sophie went to bed, Tasha and Jonathan sat in the living room. The usual spot, the usual tea. But everything had changed. I should call my mother, Tasha said. Let her know what's happening. She'll think I've lost my mind. Want me to talk to her? Eventually. Let me prepare her first. Tasha stepped outside for the phone call. Her mother answered on the second ring, worry in her voice. Tasha? Are you okay? You haven't called all week. I'm more than okay, Mom. I have so much to tell you. She explained everything. The eviction notice, Jonathan's proposal, the week with Sophie, the gala, the birthday party. Her mother listened without interrupting, a skill she'd perfected over years of being a single parent. So you're staying, her mother said when Tasha finished. With this man and his daughter. After 1 week. I know it sounds crazy. It sounds like fate. Like the universe putting you exactly where you needed to be. You're not upset? Baby, you've been taking care of me for months. Sacrificing everything to pay my medical bills. Now someone wants to take care of you? I'm thrilled. When can I meet them? Tears spilled down Tasha's cheeks. Soon. Jonathan wants you to move in here. He says there's plenty of room. Move in? With a billionaire? Tasha Bennett, your life has taken a turn. They talked for another 30 minutes working out details. Her mother would come visit next weekend. They'd see how everyone got along. If it felt right, they'd arrange the move. When Tasha came back inside, Jonathan was waiting. How'd it go? She thinks I'm crazy. But she's happy for me. And the moving in part? She's coming to visit next weekend. We'll see how it goes. Jonathan smiled. It's going to go perfectly. Your mother raised you. She must be wonderful. That night, lying in bed, Tasha thought about how much had changed in 1 week. 7 days ago, she'd been homeless and hopeless. Now she had a home, a family, and a future full of possibility. It was terrifying and thrilling and exactly right. She'd taken the biggest risk of her life. Accepted an impossible job. Opened her heart to people she barely knew. Chosen to stay when leaving would have been safer. But safe hadn't gotten her anywhere. Brave was terrifying, but brave offered everything she'd ever wanted. Tomorrow would be the first day of her new life. No pretending. No arrangements. Just her being herself, seeing where love could lead. She fell asleep smiling, hope blooming in her chest like butterflies taking flight. Monday morning felt different. Tasha woke with sunlight on her face and certainty in her heart. She wasn't leaving. This wasn't goodbye. This was a beginning. She dressed and went downstairs to find Jonathan making coffee, just like every other morning. But when she entered the kitchen, he turned and smiled at her with such warmth that she felt it down to her toes. Good morning, he said. Good morning. Sleep well. Better than I have in months. They made breakfast together, moving around each other easily. When Sophie came down, she hugged them both, her happiness obvious. What are we doing today? Sophie asked. Actually, Jonathan said, I need to go to the office for a few hours. Would you two like to come with me? I thought I could show Tasha where I work, and Sophie, you haven't visited in a while. Sophie looked excited. Can we see the robot? We can see the robot. At Pierce Technologies, the building was sleek and modern, all glass and steel. Employees greeted Jonathan respectfully, their eyes curious about Tasha and Sophie. Jonathan introduced Tasha simply as someone important to me, which felt honest and right. His office was on the top floor, spacious and bright. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the entire city. Sophie immediately ran to look out, pressing her face against the glass. Careful, sweetheart, Jonathan called. I'm always careful. While Jonathan handled some urgent emails, his assistant brought Tasha tea. It's wonderful to finally meet you, the woman said. Mr. Pierce has been much happier lately. We've all noticed. Tasha didn't know how to respond to that, so she just smiled. Jonathan took them on a tour of the facility. Research labs where engineers worked on new technologies. Conference rooms where ideas became reality. The cafeteria where employees could eat gourmet meals. And Sophie's favorite, the robotics lab with its demonstration robots. Sophie was fascinated, asking technical questions that impressed the engineers. One of them, a young woman with kind eyes, engaged Sophie in a conversation about programming. You could be an engineer someday, the woman said. Or a scientist, Sophie replied. I want to study butterflies. You can be both. Engineers use science all the time. Watching Sophie interact with Jonathan's employees, seeing her intelligence shine, Tasha felt proud. This child was going to do amazing things. After the office visit, they stopped for lunch at a small cafe. Just the three of them eating sandwiches and talking about everything and nothing. Normal family stuff. Beautiful in its simplicity. "Daddy," Sophie said between bites, "when are you and Tasha going on a date?" Jonathan nearly choked on his water. "What? A date? Like in movies? Where you dress up and go to dinner and hold hands and stuff?" Tasha laughed at Jonathan's expression. "That's a good question, Sophie. Your dad and I haven't really discussed dating logistics. You should go this weekend," Sophie suggested. "Maria can watch me. You two can have a romantic dinner." "Since when do you know about romantic dinners?" Jonathan asked. "I watch movies. I know things." That evening, after Sophie went to bed, Jonathan approached Tasha with a sheepish expression. "So, about that date. You want to take me on a date?" "I want to take you on a proper date. Somewhere nice. Just the two of us. Get to know each other outside of the Sophie context." "I'd like that. This Friday?" "Friday works." They smiled at each other, suddenly shy. This was new territory. Before they'd been playing roles. Now they were just themselves, navigating real emotions and real possibility. Friday came quickly. Tasha spent the afternoon getting ready, grateful for the red dress from the gala. She styled her hair carefully, applied makeup with precision. When she looked in the mirror, she saw someone confident. Someone worthy of this chance. Jonathan wore a sharp navy suit. When he saw her, he stopped short. "You're beautiful." "Thank you. You look very handsome." They said goodbye to Sophie, who gave them both enthusiastic hugs and whispered to Tasha, "Make sure he holds your hand." The restaurant was elegant but not stuffy. Soft lighting, excellent food, attentive service. They sat across from each other, no longer strangers but not yet fully known to each other either. "I realized I don't know basic things about you," Jonathan said. "Like your favorite color or your biggest fear or what you wanted to be when you grew up." "Green is my favorite color. My biggest fear is disappointing people I care about. And I wanted to be a librarian when I grew up." "Why a librarian?" "Because libraries felt safe. Full of stories and possibilities. A place where everyone was welcome and knowledge was free." Jonathan listened intently. "Do you still want that?" "I don't know. My dreams have shifted. Right now, I just want stability. To rebuild. To figure out who I am beyond survival mode." "You're allowed to want more than just survival." "I'm learning that." They talked for hours. About his childhood and hers. About building his company from nothing. About her mother's illness and recovery. About favorite books and terrible movies and places they wanted to travel. "I've never left the country," Tasha admitted. "Never had the money or opportunity." "Where would you go if you could go anywhere?" "Japan. I've always been fascinated by the culture. The art, the history, the gardens." "Then we'll go to Japan. When you're ready. All three of us." The promise felt huge. A future together. Travel and experiences and life beyond this moment. After dinner, they walked through a nearby park. The evening was warm, the stars beginning to appear. Jonathan took her hand just like Sophie suggested. It felt right. "I'm glad you stayed," he said quietly. "I'm glad I stayed too. This is scary, but it's also wonderful. We can take it as slow as you need. No pressure. Just seeing where this goes." "I appreciate that. But Jonathan? I don't think I need as much time as I thought. This already feels right." He stopped walking, turning to face her. "It does. Yes. I know it's fast. I know it's unconventional. But when I'm with you, with Sophie, everything makes sense. Like I found something I didn't know I was looking for." "I feel the same way." They stood there in the park, the world quiet around them. Jonathan lifted his hand to her cheek, his touch gentle. "Can I kiss you?" "Yes." The kiss was soft and sweet. A promise of more to come. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. "That was nice," Tasha said. "Very nice." They walked back to the car hand in hand, talking and laughing. The date had been perfect. Not because of the fancy restaurant or romantic setting, but because they'd been themselves. Honest and open and hopeful. At home, they found Maria reading in the living room. "Sophie went to bed about an hour ago," she reported. "No problems. She drew you a picture though. It's on the kitchen table." The picture showed 3 stick figures holding hands. Labels identified them. Daddy, Tasha, and me. Above them, butterflies flew in a blue sky. The word family was written in careful letters across the top. Tasha's eyes filled with tears. "She drew us as a family." "Because that's what we are," Jonathan said softly. Maybe not in the traditional way. Maybe not yet official. But we're a family that chose each other. And that's just as real. That night, Tasha fell asleep thinking about the future. About more dates with Jonathan. About watching Sophie grow up. About building something real and lasting and beautiful. She'd been hired to pretend. But somewhere along the way, pretending became real. And real was better than anything she could have imagined. 6 months later, the morning sun streamed through the windows of what Tasha now genuinely called home. She woke in her room, which had slowly filled with her belongings, her books, her personality. The house had absorbed her presence until she was woven into its very fabric. She could hear Sophie's laughter downstairs. Her mother's voice calling something about breakfast. Jonathan's deeper tones responding. This was her family now. Fully, completely, wonderfully real. She dressed in comfortable jeans and a bright green sweater, pulling her hair into a ponytail. No more pretending. No more carefully selected outfits for a role. Just her living her life. Downstairs, the kitchen was organized chaos. Sophie was helping her grandmother, Tasha's mother Diane, make pancakes. Flour covered the counter. Diane, fully recovered now and glowing with health, laughed at Sophie's enthusiastic mixing. "Good morning," Tasha said, kissing Sophie's head and hugging her mother. "Morning, sweetheart," Diane said. "We're making butterfly pancakes." "Of course you are." Jonathan appeared with coffee for everyone. He kissed Tasha's cheek in passing, a casual gesture of affection that had become natural over the months. "Morning, beautiful." "Morning. What's the plan today?" "Well," Jonathan said, his eyes twinkling. "I thought we could discuss something as a family." Sophie looked up from her mixing. "What kind of something?" "An important something. Come sit down, everyone." They gathered around the kitchen table, breakfast temporarily forgotten. Tasha's heart raced. Something in Jonathan's expression promised big news. "So," Jonathan began, looking at each of them. "I've been thinking. We've been living together for 6 months now. We're a family in every way that matters. Sophie calls this home. Diane has her own suite and takes care of the house. Tasha and I have been dating and growing closer every day. And?" Sophie prompted impatiently. Jonathan laughed. "And I think it's time to make it official." He turned to Tasha. "I know we've talked about taking things slow. But Tasha, these past 6 months have been the happiest of my life. You've brought joy and light and love into this house. Sophie adores you. I adore you. And I'd like to ask you something." Tasha's breath caught as Jonathan pulled a small box from his pocket. He didn't get down on one knee. Instead, he took her hand across the table, keeping them at eye level. "Equal partners. Tasha Bennett, will you marry me? Not because of any arrangement or pretending, but because I love you. Because I want to spend my life with you. Because you're already my family and I want to make it legal." Tears streamed down Tasha's face. 6 months ago, she'd been sitting on concrete steps with eviction notices. Now a man she loved was asking her to be his wife. Life was impossible and perfect. "Yes," she said. "Absolutely yes." Sophie cheered. Diane cried happy tears. Jonathan slipped the ring onto Tasha's finger, a beautiful sapphire surrounded by diamonds. Then he kissed her properly while Sophie giggled and Diane applauded. "Does this mean Tasha will really be my mom?" Sophie asked. "If she wants to be," Jonathan said. Tasha pulled Sophie into her lap. "I would be honored to be your mom. If you want me to be. I want it more than anything. Can I call you mom now?" "You can call me whatever feels right to you." "Then I'm calling you mom. My real mom. Because you chose to stay. You chose us." They held each other, this family built from impossible circumstances. A man who had been desperate. A child who had needed love. A woman who had needed hope. All finding each other at exactly the right moment. The next few months were a whirlwind. Planning a wedding. Making it official. Tasha legally adopting Sophie, who cried happy tears when the judge declared them mother and daughter. The wedding was small and perfect. Close friends and family only. Sophie was the flower girl, wearing a purple dress with butterfly details. She took her job very seriously, carefully dropping petals down the aisle. Tasha wore a beautiful dress in soft ivory with green accents. Her mother walked her down the aisle, pride radiating from every pore. Jonathan waited at the altar, looking at Tasha like she was everything he'd ever wanted. Their vows were simple but powerful. Promises to love and support. To be honest and kind. To build a family based on choice and commitment. Sophie stood between them, holding both their hands as they became a family in the eyes of the law and their community. At the reception, Sophie gave a speech that made everyone cry. My mom didn't come back, she said seriously. My birth mom left when I was little. But then Daddy found Tasha. And Tasha chose to stay. She chose to love me even though she didn't have to. That's what real love is. Choosing to stay. Later, dancing with Jonathan, Tasha marveled at how much had changed. A year ago, I was homeless and hopeless. And now I have everything. A husband, a daughter, a home, a mother who's healthy. How did this happen? You said yes to an impossible offer. You were brave enough to take a chance. We were both brave. We were. And look what bravery gave us. They adopted 2 more children over the next year. A brother and sister from foster care who needed a home. Sophie was thrilled to be a big sister. The house filled with even more noise and laughter and love. Tasha opened her bookstore eventually. Jonathan helped with the business plan. Sophie helped pick books for the children's section. Diane managed the cafe attached to it. It was a family project, successful and fulfilling. On Sophie's 7th birthday, they had another butterfly-themed party. But this time there was no pretending. Just a real family celebrating together. That evening, putting Sophie to bed, Tasha thought about the journey that had brought them here. About desperate offers and impossible choices. About courage and hope and choosing to stay. Mom? Sophie said sleepily. Will you tell me the story again? About how you and Daddy met. It was Sophie's favorite bedtime story. Tasha had told her an edited version. True in the ways that mattered. Once upon a time, Tasha began, there was a man who loved his daughter more than anything. And there was a woman who needed hope. They found each other when they both needed something. And they built a family based on love and choice and courage. And they lived happily ever after, Sophie finished. Yes, we lived happily ever after. Because they did. Not perfectly. Life was still complicated. They still had challenges and difficult days. But they faced everything together. As a family. As partners who had chosen each other. Tasha kissed Sophie's forehead. Good night, sweetheart. Good night, Mom. I love you. I love you too. So much. She left Sophie's room and found Jonathan waiting in the hallway. He pulled her into his arms. Happy. Impossibly happy. Good. Because this is forever. You know that, right? I know. And I wouldn't want it any other way. They went downstairs to their living room. The house was quiet, the children asleep, Diane in her suite. Just the 2 of them, ending the day the way they'd ended every day for the past year. Together. Tasha thought about that desperate woman on the concrete steps. About the eviction notices and the medical bills and the complete hopelessness. About the stranger who had offered an impossible solution. She thought about saying yes. About being brave. About choosing to stay when leaving would have been safer. That choice had changed everything. Had given her a family. A home. A future full of possibility. Sometimes the best things come from impossible beginnings. Sometimes desperate moments lead to beautiful transformations. Sometimes strangers become family. Sometimes pretending becomes real. And sometimes when you have nothing left to lose, you find everything you've been searching for. Tasha had found her everything. In a little girl who loved butterflies. In a man who valued kindness. In a home filled with laughter and love. She'd been hired to pretend to be someone's wife for 1 week. Instead, she'd become someone's wife for life. And that made all the difference. The end came not with drama, but with peace. With contentment. With the quiet joy of a family who had chosen each other. Who continued to choose each other every single day. Because that's what love is. Not just the big moments. But the daily choice to stay. To be present. To build something real from whatever circumstances brought you together. Tasha and Jonathan had built something beautiful. Something that started impossible and became inevitable. Something that proved love could grow from the strangest soil and bloom into the most gorgeous garden. Years later, when people asked how they met, they told a simplified version of the truth. Left out the arrangement and the money. Focused on the connection and the choice to build a family. But sometimes late at night they told each other the real story. About desperate offers and brave acceptance. About butterfly facts and birthday cakes. About a week that changed everything. And they were grateful. For the impossible circumstances that brought them together. For the courage to take a chance. For the wisdom to recognize real love when it appeared in unexpected packaging. They lived happily ever after. Not because life was perfect, but because they were perfect for each other. Because they had chosen love when it would have been easier to walk away. And that choice made all the difference.